Hello, everybody. Oh, my light's in my face. See, I did everything except move my light. There you go. Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer. And that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Most importantly, this week, it is our Thanksgiving week spectacular. Our regular yearly giving thanks for everything that we've gotten on our table in this wonderful Warhammer year. We're late because of Tom, as always, at the time he picked. So it's all Tom's fault, as is standard. But that's just
I mean, it's what we should give thanks to it. Like that's just where we're at.
we're giving thanks for Tom's
Just
lateness. You know,
this
Tom,
is just
when I finally get this merch thing off the ground, whenever it happens, there is going to be a shirt that with your little nurgling guy on it or
it
something
says TikTok.
that just says it's all my fault.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I will specifically commission that shirt. So I'm sure it'll be a bestseller right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But yeah, today we're gonna look back over the year. As those of you who've been with us for a while know, we do at the Thanksgiving episode. Traditionally on this Wednesday, we've always done a Thanksgiving episode. It's nice because this is always the day before Thanksgiving because that's how this holiday works. It doesn't skip days. It's always Thursday. So our show is always the day before.
Yep.
And I think this is one of the sort of traditions that I know a lot of families do is they sit around and they talk about, kind of at the table when you gather, you say what you have to give thanks for in the year, right? And I think this actually is a pretty good habit. Like, I think we are often not grateful enough in our life for all the wonderful things we have, even when our life has rough spots. There's often wonderful things in our life to keep us going, and it's good to focus on the positive things, right?
Yep.
To give thanks and celebration and be grateful for all those wonderful things. So this is that, but for Warhammer. That's what this is. This is my brilliant idea we've done for the last 5 years, 6 years. I don't know how many times we've done this, however long.
Well, it's one show we don't have to plan.
This is true. It does make it easier on the planning. The content grind is Sisyphean in its nature. Yes, absolutely. But we're gonna get into the normal stuff as always. So we're gonna go through all the releases, everything this year, talk about what we thought about them. We encourage you to share your own thoughts in the comments and so on and so forth. We'll talk about releases. We'll talk about some events that we've been to, the community, all of those kinds of things. Because this has been a absolutely banner year. I know. Mr. Meth said, "Ew, positivity. Get into it, man. Let the gravy of positivity wash over you." That's what I say. Just dive headfirst into positivity gravy. All right. But first,
A big dollop of it.
sure. First, let's
That's
do the
happening
no
here.
news. There was a rumor
So
engine. I don't even have it up on the screen because it's a Necron thing.
yeah, it's probably a Necron thing. Like, I know that there's a symbol that was Necronish. It's fine. Like, I want it to be Seraphon. I know it's Necron, but I want it to be Seraphon.
Sure. Or or it is Seraphon and they just reused like part of the Necron Zcad runes in it
Yep,
because that's a file that they have.
it's true.
So,
Yeah, it's a thing.
sure. But yes, it's a circular rock with Necron runes on it. Okay,
Yep.
cool. There you go.
Yep.
That's it. That's literally all the news this week because this is a quiet week as far as news goes. They talked about the battle boxes. They did an article saying, "Hey, guess remember those? Those are coming here like next week or whatever."
Yeah, we already covered that.
Yeah, I
Like a
know. We
couple
already
weeks
talked
ago.
about it. So, hey, they're here now. So okay, you can get those if
Are
you
you
want.
picking up any battle boxes, Vince?
No, I have plenty of projects, man. I'm in the middle of an army, dude. I don't need any. Like I've between Golden Demon stuff and the Whirlwind's Edge army that
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
working on, which I did finish I'll share the pictures tomorrow, but I did finish the Free Guild General on Griffin. He's up here in his
Right.
case now. And he came out. I don't think I've ever hated a project in the middle more.
Oh,
Yeah, we could talk about it in hobby time, but like, let's stick to our standard format. Yes. So no,
okay.
I'm not buying any battle boxes. Is the short answer. There's nothing I want. Besides, I've got to wait for those new giant angel elves. So once those get
Sure.
here, I'm buying all those.
The intelligentsia angel elves, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When the scholarly giant angel elves, yes, correct.
It
When
checks out.
when those show up, uh, that is going to be something that I am. You want to talk about going deep into? Oh, buddy.
I mean, or not. Like OBR, you were in, and then you were not.
Look,
So I don't
here's
know,
what I'm
man.
excited about for this. True, they could ruin it with the sculpts. That's absolutely true. In theory, I mean, here's the reality of this little joke that's been going on for a couple weeks now that I'm hoping to just manifest into reality, like I'm using the secret.
Right.
Um, the if it's just giants, if they truly just made like a Heish giant army, right, and it had
Sure.
nothing to do with elves,
Yep.
that would be amazing, and I'd be all over it because I love
Right.
giants, right?
Yep. 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 Yep.
If
Yep.
they made an angelic elf army and they were like true angels and they all looked like gloriously sort of either Renaissance biblically art angelic,
Yep. Yep.
magic, early Magic the Gathering art angelic,
Yep.
or crazy later set angelic, right?
Yep.
Or anything like that, I'd be into it.
Like
For the first
Apocrypha
time.
angelic.
Yes, thank you. Great way to say that. Yes. Then I'd be super into that.
Yep.
So like, there's few ways that this could break out. I'm not at least excited about the potential, right?
Sure.
That was a meaty sentence that got me very excited for the new year. So there you go. Your dog is excited about Thanksgiving too.
I know my dog is super
Your
excited.
dog's excited about giant angel elves. I get it. Who isn't really? Right?
I mean, it checks out.
Yeah. Now, as to the things that are in there, no, there's no other existing armies I really have any interest in. So I'm good.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I kind of like the Gloom Spite box.
It's fun if you like bouncy boys.
Right,
The
and like
trolls
that's
are
what
kind of
like
in there for fun. You don't really need that.
yeah, like
much else.
I have two boxes of trolls that I haven't opened up, and so like getting that would get me the 3, which I'd want to run a unit of 9 anyways. And so it actually like puts me at the right numbers. And I kind of like the squigs like a lot.
Sure.
Um,
You get what 10
but-
bouncy boys in that plus the mangler.
yeah,
Plus
and I think a squig herd as well.
Yeah. I don't
The
think you
foot
get the
guys?
herd. I think you get the other guys. But anyway,
Yeah.
the point is that sure. I mean the Skaven box is undoubtedly the best deal, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Just because it's full of all the dual kits, like it's just full of everything. Dual kits. One of those kits in there can be built in 5 different ways.
Yep.
Like I mean that is the most versatile of all of them. Like everything in there is basically a dual kit. And yes, it comes with 20 clan rats and 20 plague monks, which first of all is a great base just for your infantry, right? But you
Right.
could also build those all as either one.
Yep.
That could become 40 plague monks or 40 clan rats pretty easy because it's just little arm swaps. All the arms on those guys are can be swapped 1-to-1.
Sure.
So you can just build you can just put clan rat arms on plague monks and more or less you're good to go. They just look like they have because some of the clan rats even have the same dirty robes.
Right.
So
Right.
there you go.
Pretty awesome.
So yeah, there you go. That's as what passes for news this week, as it were. I'm sure it's a quiet week because they know it's a holiday and whatever. But I mean, I am expecting very soon to get information on the Slaves to Darkness book, since that's going on pre-order the 7th, I think, is what it should be. So like,
Yeah, I'm really
here
mixed
this
on
next
that.
week, we should get some info.
Like it's going to be good, but it also like it'll likely mess with some of the synergies that I have.
Okay.
Like for my Nurgle army, like it's going to mess with some of my stuff. It's going to mess with my collection, and so like I feel really mixed about it. Is what I would say.
Look, man, always consider any chance to move forward a chance to move forward. Yes, things change, but that is the only constant in life. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. So. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I don't, and like I am excited about what could come of this.
Sure.
Because it could be really good. Although again, I'm really interested in Nurgle. I'm not really as much interested in Slaves to Darkness. So, and if we don't have a new like Demon Prince box, that's disappointing as well.
Well, it wasn't on the release list, so. But
I know it wasn't. That's what I'm saying.
But who knows? That doesn't mean it wasn't. It could be a future. That's not necessarily saying they're happening all at once. We didn't
Right,
see.
and it could always drop with like a 40K release as well.
Absolutely, because it's always been a dual kit. Yes.
Right.
Yep. Sure. I mean, the Demon Prince is truly an underwhelming kit and has just been something that most people converted right?
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
fine. In the end, there's a million. Have you seen the new Creature Caster release that's coming
I
this week? If
have,
you
and
like
they're
Nurgle,
beautiful.
there's
Yep.
two new,
Yeah,
there's
but
or three new ones. The lady of Ruin or whatever she is, the female Nurgle demon
yep.
monster.
Yep. Yep.
Woof, woof. I mean, like it's like gorgeous in the most horrific way possible.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I love the creature caster stuff, and like it's really funny. Like I used to be a huge proponent of third party stuff, and then uh, like what sits at the back of my mind, and this should not influence it at all, and yet it does, is the fact that like if I end up in an event, I can't get on the stream if I have that in my army. Like,
You're
and I'm
saying if you
like,
end up in an event
man,
that the actual Games Workshop people are streaming.
yeah, like if the Games Workshop people are streaming the stuff, and I'm just
Tom,
like,
don't be silly.
man,
You don't go to events.
it's true,
Yeah.
it's
So
true,
what are you worried about?
yeah,
It's fine.
yeah, it's legitimate. Yeah, I mean, and even if I did, like, what's the odds that I would end up on, like, high enough table to actually be on a stream?
Well, I mean, you did last year, so there you go. I mean, I would say actually the odds on that are decent-ish. You're a good player who's usually in the top 10 at big events like that. But, hey, who knows, right?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so like, it's a funny thing because I used to be a huge third party like model proponent, and now I'm just like, I just wish that GW would actually release better models for that stuff.
Sure, I get it. All right, so there you go. That's news. Let's talk about some pick of the week, man. What are you sharing with everybody on this wonderful Turkey Day Eve? Uh-huh.
I got
You had to
nothing, man.
think about it for a second. All right. I'll tell you what.
I do like I'm thinking about the content producers, and like I could do Rantcast or Honest Wargamer or a lot of those folks, but like yeah.
You can do Rentcast. Why don't you do Rantcast, Tom? Since I've got multiple, because
okay, fine, I'll do Rantcast. Hey, go check out Meph's new Rantcast. He did it with 2+ stuff, and it's awesome.
And it was great. Absolutely.
Yep.
That's 100% correct. And it was absolutely wonderful. I'll be completely honest. I'm not fully through the episode yet. I am about an hour and a half into the episode. But I've enjoyed the first hour and a half. Doug and Meph are awesome, and it's always great to hear them chit chat and talk about the lore. I vehemently disagree with your point at the beginning about Sigmar versus Nagash and all of that nonsense. That is insanity, what you're preaching. That's moral equivocation. That is nonsense. Sigmar often makes hard decisions. Nagash is clearly a villain. Get out of here. Oh my goodness. Like, do we have to make every bad guy, yeah, he can have
Relatable.
understandable motivations, which he does. Like, Nagash isn't just only a mustache twirling villain with no motivation. I agree.
I mean, except if you read the novels, and he is.
He has logical enough motivations in the world. I agree with that. But that logical motivations do not equal moral legitimacy. That's not how it works.
Yeah, like Thanos.
Yes, like Thanos. Thanos was absolutely wrong, right? Like, no, incorrect, dumb. Like, killing half the people in the universe is not a good answer, right? Just because he had a logical path he followed to get there doesn't suddenly make him morally okay. Good night. The moral relativism leaps you have to go through to get to the point where you're making the skull god of death who's just killing people by the thousands and torturing them in eternal imprisonment into a moral good guy on the level with the being who's made some bad decisions and bad choices, but ultimately has tried to save all of humanity from destruction twice. Like, in what world do we live here? Good night. Sorry, I had strong opinions about that. You triggered me in that episode. Anyways, you're right. They are both as correct, Meph, and that they're both wrong. And here, Meph, I'll make it this easy. Here's another option for Thanos to prove how dumb he is. Instead of snapping and killing half the people, he could have snapped and quadrupled or increased by an order of magnitude the resources. He could go the other way around in the equation. He just wanted to kill people because he's a villain. Anyway. So, cool.
Maybe he just doesn't like people, Vince. can relate to that, right?
I can relate to that. Like I said, I can empathize, but that doesn't create moral equivalency.
It's legitimate.
Okay. You know we're talking about this on Rantcast, Meph. You know that. We're going to be talking about that. I've already got a bunch of conversations teed up for you, Mephisto. I'll bring my own agenda when I come on, like next week or whatever. 2 weeks, whenever we get it organized. At any rate, my pick of the week is, now that I went on that rant, is for actually a video that was done by Trevelyan, who is an awesome dude. So Chris, obviously, he's the guy who took third overall in Everchosen, which is incredible. He painted that wonderful Nurgle. I don't remember which one, Lord of Blights,
Yep.
Plagues. I don't know which one's which. I can never keep them straight. But whatever it did, it was fantastic. He did a video on making the most out of your texture paints, and it's a really short, simple video where he talks about how to get some different effects and how to kind of make them look nice. And I'm always banging on about, making your bases look better, but I know a lot of people don't have a lot of time or, to spend on their bases. And he talks about just how to get kind of the most out of these kinds of tools. And he gets some really good looking but simple bases that I think would look awesome on people's armies. So, hey, any kind of quick, awesome hobby tip like that, I love it. Thank you, Useless Wizard. Yeah, great. Lord of Blights. Okay, perfect. All right. So that's that. So let's talk about hobby time. Tom, what are you working on?
I'm painting my very doomed bridge that I've converted over for my dwarves. I say doomed because it's obviously probably going to get nerfed, but whatever. I'm doing it anyways because I'm this
it'll
far.
still be usable.
Well, hopefully. Anyway, so I'm working on that. Like I have a bunch of dwarves in process, but I didn't want to start painting gold because I'm lazy. And so while we were sitting here, I was like, you know what? I'll just throw a little bit of paint on some base coats on this thing. So yeah.
All right.
It'll be fine.
Fair enough. I have had an extremely busy hobby week. My God. So I finished my Free Guild General on Griffin, which is actually a guy on frigate ship Weatherlight thing, the SS Griffin. So it's done now. It's back there. I've been actually working on a completely different type of hobby, which is 2D sort of thing. I'm making a map for my new world that I'm making for our regular D&D game. And so I've been going through and I pencil sketched it and then inked it and then brought it in and digitally colored it and then reprinted it to start throwing names and things around to see how I like everything placed on the map. And then I'll put that back into digital and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's good too. Like I'm actually really like, I'm just using the new version of Paint in Windows or whatever. It's like Paint 3D, but it's actually really good for like my purposes for making a map like this. Like it sounds silly and stupid, but it's pretty cool. Like it's got what I need. I'm not a smart man and I don't need any more powerful technology. So this one is fine. It lets me put little pretty colors on things. I'm going to run a marathon starting tomorrow on Thanksgiving. So we're doing our annual Thanksgiving marathon. It'll actually be in Rifts. So I put the finishing touches on my my marathon game I'm running. Developing out some additional NPCs and encounters and just stuff like that, making sure I had everything where I wanted it. It's always good after you write a story to go back right before you're about to run it and reread the whole thing, just to make sure there's no like logical inconsistencies in there. Just to make sure you didn't like say mention a villain kind of offhandedly maybe once in a passing conversation and expect the PCs to suddenly know it. A great deal of time later. Not that anyone would do that. Who would do that?
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. In the miniatures world, I'm working on my next Golden Demon entry now, which is this little guy, this little tiny homie here, who is a little tiny Imperial Knight. This is for the small scale category.
Oh,
so yeah, indeed, he's an adorable little baby knight, and so I.
Is that from like Titanicus?
Yeah, from Adeptus Titanicus. Yeah, and I was looking through all the patterns that I like, and I'm gonna do him in this one, which is who is this actually? I don't even know these names. House Terran. It's this guy right here. I like. Yeah, this one. I like this one.
Nice.
Sorry, wrong finger. That one. That's the one I like. So we're going to do him like that, because that's kind of a cool thing. His name is Balthazar Ever Stalwart. Thought that was kind of cool. I liked his little elements and colors and stuff, so I thought that'd be a fun one to do. So, no freehand mural on the shoulders of this. Although you could, like, it's actually big enough. Like, that's the size of the shoulders. They're about the size. They're bigger than like a Space Marine's pauldrons or anything like that. And you can do, sort of little tiny murals on that. But no, because they get angry when I do those murals. That is to say, those don't really win awards. And I'm already going in with one overtly free-handed knight.
Yep.
So it feels like the kind of thing I shouldn't I shouldn't push my luck
If
on.
you really want to try to get the golden demon, that's probably not what you ought to not do.
With my big knight, I'm always going to live my truth with the big knights.
Sure.
Like
Sure.
it's what it's going to be.
Be like, suck it, judges. You have to deal with my art.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I mean, it's just what it is. I just, okay. I was making sure.
You're passionate about the freehand on your sister's knights.
As well as the new Tzeentch Knights, yeah. The Slaanesh, or sorry, not Tzeentch Knights, sorry, Slaanesh Knights, yeah. Yes, and also I did get a new Chaos Knight Desecrator for my birthday from my wife. So I've got that. Absolutely, yeah. I've got my next Chaos Knight. He's ready to go. I've got all my knights now that I need for the Chaos Force too. So, because I have too many Imperial Knights. There's no such thing. Yeah. So that's a big week. So I'm going to be running games for like the next 4 days.
I do look forward to the opportunity to play Robots with you sometime.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the best painted Robots battle ever.
Absolutely, yeah. Slaanesh versus Sisters, Knights on Knights. Yep. Knights. I also got a good game in this last weekend. Got a nice actual one-on-one on, which is rare for me, for my birthday. So somebody came over and we played a game, and I ran the new Maw Tribes, and wow. They was like, the opponent was not prepared for the brutality. Let me just say it that way. Like, it was
Did they play Night Haunt?
They did play Night Haunt, yes.
I mean, they allegedly played Night Haunt.
Well, it was a Night Haunt army. They just weren't really ready or expecting this level of ferocity.
Right.
Like, in one round, on the double, I blew through, no, it wasn't even on the double. Like, I blew through all of the chain rasps, like a 40 pack of chain rasps, and then got like multi-charged by a bunch of stuff, lost like two gluttons, and then proceeded to kill all of those things back because they still had all their buffs on them, right?
Sure.
So it was just like, I mean, they had like the +1 attack and the +1 to hit, and the 6s are bites on or the 6s are mortal bites, and it was just like the pain that unit can withstand and still just punch back ungodly hard. Yeah, it was just like, it was overkill on a massive level. And ogres have always been strong against ghosts because of the multi-damage and the fact that so much of the army has no rend, right? So it's
like they're uninfluenced by the lack of rend.
Yeah. Right, like I was overpaying 0. It's just all these multi-damage attacks, right? Like Iron Guts were just running around blowing up units.
Sure.
Right? So, yeah. The Hunter and Cats was really awesome too. I really liked those guys coming in off the board edge, and then the Night Haunt player. I was running. No, I wasn't using Skull. I was using Gormond. So I was double gripping and ripping out of the pot. The funny part about it was like the Night Haunt player was using like the Dreadblade Harrow, and he had cast Cogs, so he could do the like drop and charge. Okay.
Yep.
But all that meant was that everything I had was just instantly all over his force because all my ogres had 10-inch moves. Right. And like the Hunter, the Cats came in with needing like a 4.
Like 4s.
Yeah, 4s to charge. You know, so I mean, it was just, it was crazy.
Probably not the wisest move.
Well, I mean, making ogres that fast to where we can get in there, and obviously it's a shame the +2 doesn't add to your charge damage of your your ogre impact charge. But I will say I was highly impressed by the ogre charge damage thing, even though it was on 6s for most units in the army, because I had some little like lead belcher darts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at one point I charged a couple characters with just like 5 different units, right?
Yeah.
And I just charged all of them in, and I rolled a bunch of like 8, 9, 7, 10. Like the charges were all in that middle range, and just like I ended up killing the characters on the way in.
I want to jump in real quick. Mephisto said that Cogs is a trap for that exact reason, or often a trap. What I would say is that what you need to learn by running Cogs is to not leave it on. And what I mean by that is like you turn it on in the turn that you need to make your charges. You don't just perpetually leave it on. You use the caster, the bonus spell, and the rerollable save default, and then when you need to do that, like jump forward and punch, that's when you turn it on.
Well, sure. And by the way, he had done that. He had switched it to that, but then it was my turn, right? So like,
right.
And then the next turn he switched it back, which was fine. But it was too late. My entire army was into him at that point, right? So like, okay. But it was good. It was a really fun game. I was super impressed by the Maw tribes, by especially that very like Gutbusters focused build. Like, I mean, admittedly, the only BCR-ish thing I had was a hunter and cats, right? I don't have any big monster trucks, but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's a good game. They were a very fun army to play. That's what I'll say. It's just piloting around. Yeah, I would say my charge rolls landed in the fat middle. It was again just the ability to like charge things with like 4 different small units.
Yep. And then roll dice for all of them.
And then roll dice for all of them meant I got through like 4 or 5 mortal wounds on the characters. Right? It's not a huge number, but it was enough that just the characters died or were severely crippled by the time I even started fighting. Right? So, yeah, it's cool. Anyway, so I believe in little lead belcher darts. I think they're an interesting option, just for that purpose. And they were also just running around, popping shots every so often and doing that kind of thing. Their shooting is always underwhelming and did basically next to nothing, but they were still an interesting threat.
Yeah.
By the way, hopefully this will remain. I say this, knock on wood. Hopefully the stream will now remain static. I looked into stuff and did some research over the time and found there's a little thing where you can dynamically adjust your bit rate. So I've set it to that, and we'll see if that helps. Most people reported that actually helped. So hopefully that's going to work.
Thanks for doing some research, Vince.
I'm trying, guys. I don't always have a lot of time, but I do try to do this work in between shows. Anyway, let's talk about this year, Tom. Shall we?
It was full.
So by the end of this year, once the Slaves book launches, let's start at the 40,000 foot view and just say this, because people have mentioned this, but it bears repeating. By the end of this year, we will have 12 books released. We will have gone on. Now, this isn't actually how it worked out because there's lots of double releases, but that means we averaged a book a month.
Yep. Which is just amazing.
Yes. Like that is outrageous. Like I can't I can't even fathom that world based on any past experience under especially like fantasy battles, but even before this in previous years of AOS, right?
Can I add a brief like comment when we're talking about like just the scope of this?
Sure.
And give a shout out to GW's testing and the playtesting teams.
Okay. Who have to keep up with all this?
Right. Who, like, let's point out that, like, yes, they've released 12 products, but that means they've also tested these 12 products in a similar window of time.
Yeah.
And and that has been the baseline that everything is being tested against. Right?
Sure.
And so, like, whenever you add something to a system, you want to make sure that you're changing as few variables as possible. That's not what's happening here.
Right.
Right? Because as they were rolling out books, they knew they had like 8 more coming.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, like the balance is really good, like across all 12 books.
Like we know we've got problems, and we'll talk about them. And for the most part, those have been, for the most part, those have been resolved. There is still one outstanding issue right now, and we know that. We'll get there. Yeah. But I am a forest for the trees kind of guy, right? Like when you've got 9 or 10, compelling fat middle interesting offerings, and you've got 2 to 3 outliers that can be brought back in, and arguably all of those but one have been. I'm going to be pretty positive about that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start with the release talk. then we'll do some
Yeah.
event, then we'll do some community. So we'll go in that order. So let's go through releases. Now, I've got a list. I made a list. I had to go and look this up. I couldn't do it off the top of my head because I was like, because I literally couldn't remember them all. That's it. That is another amazing thing. Tom, which book do you think I forgot? Because I got to 11 and I was like, what am I forgetting?
Was it Gloomspite?
No. Oh, no. I definitely remember the goblins. They're too fun to forget. Which army would I forget, Tom? Out of the 12 of this year, what's the
Sylvaneth?
least memorable? No, I remembered Sylvaneth because they didn't fix it. Fyreslayers. Fyreslayers is what I forgot. Because who cares? They were boring before. They're boring now. Sorry, Fyreslayers players. You're playing a boring army.
I mean, I don't disagree.
And you are a Fyreslayer player. That's really saying something.
Like, I like the army, but like it just didn't change with the book. Like they didn't add, like, yes, they added the shrine, but like it just didn't. They added the prayers, but there's just fundamental core issues with the army that need to be addressed.
By the way, shout out to Keith and Meth, who both called it in the comments, like, because they're a little obviously behind, and they both called Fyreslayers before I said it. So well done, gentlemen. Well done. All right. So okay, let's get into these in order. Well, or in pseudo order. They're not really in order. They're in the order I remembered to write them down, which is like roughly the order, right? I wasn't going to go look up the exact release dates. Okay, so Gits. Let's start with them Gits. Obviously, they dropped last year with our advent calendar, right? We got that little fun thing where the Sigmar's Santa Claus house was slowly getting invaded by fungus and Gits. Overall, what's our over under, our good, the bad, having this year to look at it, and all these are going to be kind of a look back. What do we now think about the Gits?
I think that they were a miss.
Okay, why so?
I love them, like, and I say that like fully acknowledging that I'm like writing lists right now.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
Like this is something like I am actively in development of this army of mine to ask, like, is this what I take next year as my main like project? And my biggest frustration is that, like, of the play styles, like, some of it is a perpetual points issue, right? Like, some of it, like, I feel like some of it's just still simply not worth it.
Okay.
And like what ends up happening is almost all my lists end up defaulting to having multiple bricks of 60 goblins. And that just seems like a problem.
Okay.
The things that I really want to play, my spiders, I can't put on the table. Not in good conscience. They're just not good. And so I love them. Like I said, I'm actively working on trying to develop lists, but there's just in order to play in the meta with how the world is now, they just really struggle. The fact that their terrain is so limited to only, like, because their terrain is limited to a handful of units, like, it pulls, like, the gravity, it pulls the army. The mechanic is also problematic as well.
Okay.
So that's what I would say.
All right. Fair enough. John, I thought they were doing the same thing with Chapter Approved that they did with the GHB, where they split the points from the main book. Which, by the way, was funny to watch everybody freak out and be like, why is it 2 books? Blah, 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 blah. Because the 40K people didn't pay attention to how the AOS stuff worked. Right. But, like, that's all I saw that they were doing, John. Was there some difference beyond that I missed? Because I'll openly admit I didn't read the article very in detail. I was like, oh, yeah, sure, that makes sense. Points should always be separate as a separate book.
And to jump back to Gits real quick, David said it was an interesting take on Gits. I love Gits. Like, I have an army. Like, I have, like, all of the models of everything I would need. But when I look at everything, I feel like they just, like, there's just a number of areas that were misses, and those end up, like, skewing the way that lists have to be created.
Gotcha.
And because of that, like, it's really, like, I think there's a reason why we don't see them in the meta. Like, you just don't see them out there. And the stuff that I really want to run, which is heavy squigs, you know, that's another half of it. Heavy squigs, like, it's just not as competitive. And the Boingrot Bounder Apocalypse never happened. No,
we overplayed our hand on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I really thought that was going to come to pass, that bounders were going to become, pretty hot, but no, they were just fine. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, Gitz was a hit, and I'm saying that as somebody I'm not starting a Gitz army, so I'm an outsider, admittedly. But I really like I've played against Gitz several times at tournaments.
Sure. Yep.
And really always enjoyed the games. I've played a couple different builds of them. I will openly admit that the 60 goblin thing is like, the negative of the book. But I think the fundamentals of the army are still strong. Like, that is to say, I think they've got some good pieces. I think you could make some hay with points there. I don't think you need to race to the bottom on them. I think they're still, like, they got some points adjustments. I think there are some scrolls that are just, like, beyond fixing. Like, you'd have to get in and fix the scroll. Hello,
Yep.
Cujo. But the like the Dankhold Troggoth or whatever, like that boss, the Dankhold
Yep.
Trog boss, like, I don't know that guy can be fixed in any way. But when I look at both the main trolls, like River and Stone, they're both interesting and
Yep.
competitive. Some points could make them so interesting. The Squigs have potential.
Yep.
Maybe it's a little points, maybe it's a little something else. Obviously, the challenge with them is they're very random, right? Because a lot of their things like their move are random, which always is going to make them hard to be hyper competitive. Like, Spike decks don't have random cards in them.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Like,
Right.
that's always
Yep.
going to be
Yep.
the case.
Right.
So,
Control is a big issue on building, and you can't do that with your mechanic either. So not only is it an issue with some of the units, it's an issue with the mechanic itself.
Yeah, sure. The moon, you mean?
Yeah.
But like Scragrot's good. The base goblins are certainly good. I mean, you can't argue with that. They're a like pretty potent unit. Like a 60 gobbo thing is pretty potent for what it is, right? A value wise is what I mean, right?
Okay. Well, okay. So this actually triggers me, because I agree. But the problem is, and here's the other half of the issue that I had, which is, there's a problem in the, like. Let me say it this way. I love that this book, really, we got to see the keywords on full display as to like what influences what, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they very tightly controlled keywords, such that like certain elements are only going to buff other elements and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
it was
principle.
a real introduction to keyword bingo. Yes.
Yes, it was the real introduction to keyword bingo. But here's the catch: is that when you only have a couple winners, that means that your support pieces are already predictated.
So you're saying
that what ends
linear.
up happening, it's linear. It's super linear design. Mm-hmm. So that as soon as I grab this, I need to grab these 3 support pieces.
Okay.
And what ends up happening is I can't just throw in this piece as an independent operator. And so like it ends up pre-building a lot of your armies for you.
Yeah, I suppose, but I don't know that that's a super bad thing. I think you can still, if you're not going in with that like a sort of hard-edge competitive mindset, I think you can still build a lot of diverse, fun lists. And I think also we should be grateful that we got that many new sculpts for that army. Like, we can't.
Oh man, I loved it. It was amazing.
Those new sculpts were all wonderful. They're freaking gorgeous. Like the new squig, but the bounders, the new squig hoppers in general. Like, that's something to be really grateful for, to have so many amazing new models join the fray, right?
That's why I want to make that's why I want to do squigs.
Yeah.
Like, the rules are
like,
okay. I want to do it because it's amazing models.
Yeah, and I think they're still solidly fat middle competitive. I agree there are probably opportunities that could have been smooth. Like, I'm not going to tell you that it's filed to a razor edge, but I think it's still a good book. And I mean, percentage-wise, it's still living in the fat middle, so it's clearly not broken.
Right.
And it has really compelling sculpts, and by the way, speaks to a lot of different people. Right? The way that they brought it together. Like, some people do love the goblin hordes, and some people do love the trolls, and some people look at Squiglanch and go, yes, 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 that is all I want. Oh my god, that's amazing. And some really sick, weird people look at the spiders and really like them. Very, very disturbed people. People like Paul that are absolutely out of their minds. But that's okay. They're allowed to have that crazy opinion. So maybe a little bit of split decision, but to me, I mean, I still think that book was overall absolutely way more in the positive than it was in the negative. Like, that was a great addition to the, to our Warhammer canon, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't.
You just limit. I understand. You're not poo-pooing the whole book. You're just saying that
No.
there are things you wish had been done a little differently. Totally.
Yeah, like, they're just very real problems. And my favorite part of the army, which is the spiders, were like, were literally just kind of like left alone. Is the best way to say it.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they just like in their current form, like they're just not viable. Like you can't run a 30 block of 50 of cav spiders. Right?
Yeah.
Like that like that's their horde discount, folks. 30 spiders. And they're on a 5-up save with a 4 bravery.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Boy, fear the dread catapult.
Well, right. No, like so I said that I was like list building, right? Like
Yeah,
I was exploring this, and then I just realized I was like, well, this is a waste of time.
Yeah, because half of that unit evaporates. Like, my God, that is a nightmare.
Yeah, like, well, and that's the reality for all of Gits right now. Like, you now have to play MSU because of catapults.
I don't know. Like, I don't know that 60 units of Pax of Grots are still cheap enough. I'm not sure you're really scared of it in most people's catapult lists, because most people's catapult lists probably have 2. And so, like, yeah,
Well,
they can flatten one of your units off the board.
All 6, if they have 2, all 60 blocks can turn to 30 blocks.
So I just said they can flatten one of your units off the board or shred 2 units. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But I don't know that that's the end of your army. Those things were in the end going to die anyways, and they paid enough points off of that. You probably still came out ahead if that's all they're able to accomplish in the game.
But no, but the problem is that in these lists, this goes to the incentive structure. In these lists, you're incentivized to have things that buff those pieces. So if you've suddenly lost that 60 block down to 30, you also have an additional 350 points to make that thing useful. Otherwise, it was just literally a speed bump. It was never actually
a different list, my friend. And/or start kicking that rock into it. Start kicking the rock hard and get more goblins out.
Well, and that's the point. Is that like but the other tools aren't. You can't build a list on. Like it's not. Anyways, so I'd ran on this for too long, but
I'm glad you realized that before I had to stop you.
No, it's just that's something to be thankful for. No, I wish it was different. Let me say it that way.
Yep. Okay. Let's talk Khorne. I know they're not next chronologically, but they were next in my mind. They loom ever present. I play Khorne a lot, so they're they're an army I feel I get a lot of experience playing against and like playing against. I think they're a fun army to play against. What's your take on Khorne? Is it a hit or miss? Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine. I think the altar was a nice addition. I think that like them getting to join the activation wards was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Overall, I think the book was strong, interesting. We've seen viable lists throughout the year in it. It's not crushing the meta, but it's certainly competitive. They reined in the egregious element, which was the whole like Council of Blood, blah blah blah. You can still you can still have fun with that. Like it's not that went away. It's just it's not over the top anymore. Right. It's like the mortal sort of avenue on it's interesting. The bloodthirsters are interesting. It's got a lot of my dog. Yes, my dog is very chill. She's sleepy. My dog is behind me in frame.
Yep, I see.
My only regret with the book is, as we talked about, like it's a little fiddly. Some of the interactions, they have a lot of Holy Within in like a small radius, which I don't mind. I don't mind Holy Within as a concept. It's a necessary evil, right?
Yep.
It just needs to generally be like, you should really watch close Holy Withins, where it's like, really, really small radius where you're going to easily get guys who fall out of it just based on like completely small nudges, especially that are happening during
Holy Within 9 to 12 is a problem.
I think once you get up to 12, that's the sweet spot, right? Like you smaller than that can be challenging, but it also depends on win. Win it also matters, Tom. Right, and this is what I want to
you're right.
It's not just the distance.
Yeah, you're right. Like you're saying for command ability. I'm saying for passive buffs, Holy Within 12 is a problem. Because that means that all units in the bubble have to charge, otherwise you're out.
Yeah, sure. What I'm thinking of is for things like command abilities, where it's like, especially with things that'll be triggering around combat time and pile-in time and or battle shock time, where suddenly you can get real fiddly because of a pile-in, and that is the thing that takes the most time in our games. We've talked about this before. Having 60 individual goblins and moving them actually isn't that complicated. Most people can do that pretty fast, right? Because it's just like you move the front line, then the rest scoot up behind. That's
Yep.
not actually time consuming. We all complain about like, oh, moving 60 goblins. Ah, that's not actually hard. Now,
Yeah, it's the
piling
piling.
in 60 fiddly goblins when they're fighting 2 different units and they're split across and you're managing like a Holy Within buff radius, that is
Yep.
what takes time. If you actually ran a clock on like the different phases of the game, that
Yep.
type of specific detail is what would take time, right?
Yep.
And
I
so
don't
that's
disagree
where
with
I
you.
see the
And
Holy Within problem challenging. And
it's an
Khorne has
issue.
a lot of that. Khorne has a
Yep.
lot of those kinds of triggers.
I mean, Night Haunt is egregious as well. Like I've been
Yes.
playing a lot of Night Haunt recently, and it like Holy Within 12, especially for passive buffs or at the start of the combat phase, it's tough.
Sure. Sure. Um, but but that being said, that's probably my one negative on the book. Other
Sure.
than Wrathmonger's change was still stupid, and I will keep that to the death of me. That shouldn't have changed like that. Wrathmonger's had the coolest, uniquest, funnest ability, and they broke it for no good reason. It died on the altar of simplicity with an ability that was more stupid and more complicated,
More
and I
complex.
hate. Yeah. So I will never ever forgive that. There you go. It's like that is in my book of grudges right there.
I don't know how we skipped over. Like I know it was in your mind, but I don't know how we skipped over Skaven and FEC as like the 50-pound gorillas at the start of the year.
Well, they're next. They're next on my
Yeah.
list. Like just because I wrote this in kind of order I remembered them as I was going through the year, and Khorne was
Sure.
just next in my mind. I don't know what to tell you, man. It's what happened.
Weird.
So there you go. All right. But yeah, on the whole, I think Khorne was a really strong book. Brought him up, made him feel like they're an AOS too. It was fun. The whole Skull Cannon. Yeah, somebody mentioned Skull Cannon Gate. That was unfortunate. That was a sucky thing. But in the end, I don't care that much. I never felt like Khorne should be a shooting army. Like,
Right.
if it was fixed, so they could do it. I'd be perfectly fine with it. It'd still be pretty underwhelming, honestly, mathematically.
Sure. Yeah.
So like they should have just left it. If you're asking me my opinion, they should have just left it.
Right.
Like, but obviously, but I hate the Wrathmonger change much more, because the Wrathmonger change was actually a really interesting rule in the way it
Ability.
interacted.
It was a tool in a
Yes.
toolbox that vanished.
That just vanished from the game, and
Yep.
I'm always
Yep.
sad when interesting, unique mechanics like that go, because that
Yep.
was really cool. So there you go.
Totally agree.
I thought that one was sweet. Okay, but on the whole, Khorne, fun. And Khorne also introduced a fun thing in like heroes that weren't leaders or whatever, right? Because we got Karnak
Right.
and that kind of stuff where they're not actually taking a leader slot, but it's still a hero.
Yep.
And I'm pretty grateful for that. Although sad that Karnak can no longer be the general leading around Bloodthirsters, but
The dog.
that's okay.
Yeah.
The fact that
Yeah.
now it's like I always end up putting Karnak in a list whenever I play Khorne, because
Yep.
I'm not chewing a leader spot at all. He just always goes in. Like that guy he's a freebie. Like of course I'm gonna put Karnak in. There you go. And yes, like Slaughter Priest is good, Bloodthirsters are good, all fun stuff.
Yep.
FEC, the Flesh Eater
Ugh.
Courts. All right, Tom. What's this one?
I mean, it was one of those out of left field. Not that updating the book was out of left field. It's just like the weight that this army suddenly carried in the meta was just egregious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I felt it. Like I was priming up for Adepticon mid February and had to add Marathi and rework my daughter's list because I wasn't gonna have I needed to deal with FEC.
Right.
I like the book, all things considered. I thought it was a nice rejuvenation for the book, despite the handful of weighty meta impacts. That's what I would say.
I mean, Gristlegore was unreal for too long. I'm gonna say that I think FEC was a miss. Okay.
Really?
I am.
Okay.
Even in its current state.
Okay.
Because there are some people doing interesting things with still non-Gristlegore lists and, doing Blister
Yeah.
Skin and even
Yep.
running like Enclave Tribalists, whatever the heck they're called in there, I don't remember.
Yep.
Lists, doing like Feast Day basically lists.
Yep.
Morgaunt or whatever, the ghoul focused one, I think
Yep.
has some potential.
Some
But just
fun.
like on the whole, there's just some things in that army I just don't love that aren't fun to play against.
Okay.
And I mean, in the end, most of the lens I judge this kind of stuff through really is
Yep.
around like, is it fun to play or to play against?
Yep.
And just the abilities to like fight even when they die.
Yep.
Depending on what you're in, to pile in twice when you die, right?
Yep.
A lot of that stuff is just, it's very disheartening because like it just means that and when put behind the power of some of their models where they
Yep.
can just on a luck roll do like 18 or 24 mortal wounds to you and
Yeah.
just blow
Totally.
you off the table.
Yep.
No, Dave. I said gits were a hit. I think we came down and agreed that gits were good. Like Tom had some negatives, but I think on the whole we still came to more positive than negative on gits.
Yeah.
Want that to be
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
So with the first two, we were both good. For me, FEC was just like, I just don't like the way it plays. I appreciate that they introduced the like all flappy monster list. That's a neat concept. Like I like big monsters; they're cool.
Yep.
But like it's a very stressful army to play against because you can't actually get a leg up from strategy very often. Like you'll get a good play and then their rules will just dig them out. Right? Because you'll get in, you'll tilt as many things in your favor as you'll actually kill their model, and then they'll just turn and wipe you. And something else if you happen to misposition in any way. Right?
I mean,
It's an army that I find like a bit exhausting to play. Honestly. That's my
because
take on it.
yeah, I mean, I hear that critique. I hear that critique. I could see people having similar critiques of Daughters, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fine. Like I don't know. I don't think it's that egregious, but like let me say, any more egregious than Skaven, or any more egregious than Daughters, or Slanesh,
Sure.
or.
Yeah, I don't know. Like to me, I've never hated playing Daughters. Like I've played against Daughters sometimes, and I actually I have a fun time with it. Like it's interesting enough to me. Like I like the army. I
What
like playing against it.
are you playing, Kraith, or are you playing?
No, playing Hagnar.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. Like because
I've
my opponent's experience of Daughters seems to have been very different.
sure. Like this is all a lot of personal bias stuff here, right? Like it's not like
Sure.
we're sitting around
Yep.
trying to like
Nope.
objectively find the truth of this thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
This is just our take on it. I will say that like I felt like obviously playing Hagnar in the buff and going into the buffed unit is frustrating. But there's still a lot of pieces that aren't like that in Hagnar. There's still a lot of things you can do, right?
Sure.
Whereas when I look at stuff like my dogs are about to bark, by the way, here in a minute, so we're gonna have to just deal with that because I heard my wife come in upstairs. When I look at it like when I look at stuff like the FEC, I just often am like, oh, good. Well, I'll get to lose all my stuff that I wanted to play with.
Right.
And that's just how that goes. Like, and there's no
Well,
other way around it.
Vince, things die.
No, I get it, and that's fine. I don't mind losing stuff. Okay, I really don't.
Sure.
It's just overall a pretty frustrating experience.
Right.
So.
That's fair.
Yep. All right. This is my wife. Hello. Say hi.
Skaven.
Yeah. Let's talk Skaven. Yes.
Did they eat you?
That has been my experience of Skaven.
One moment, everybody. While I put myself on mute. Talk about Skaven, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, so Vince's experience with FEC for me has been my experience of Skaven. It's never a pleasant experience playing Skaven in its new form, because of the perpetual threat of the gnaw holes and needing to zone those out, because of the need to because of the different tools that they have, they don't follow the normal rules with clan rats in that like they can attack and then retreat out. It's just because they have these super punchy pieces like acolytes and plague monks, because they have these super techy pieces, like it's never a relaxing experience playing Skaven. It's always a highly technical game. It's always a stressful game for me. And so like for me, like it was just very frustrating just because of how just across the board Skaven just got all the toys and everything they wanted and everything's hunky-dory.
Mm-hmm.
So your critique of FEC is my critique of Skaven.
Okay.
Like I'm sure it's fun to play.
Yeah. So, and by the way, thank you, by the way, for remembering that the way we did this last year was thanky or janky. And yeah, that's what we're doing.
Janky.
So Gits, thanky, Corn, thanky. My vote for FEC is janky. What's your vote for FEC?
Yeah, probably janky.
All right, fair enough. So Skaven. Ultimately, Skaven's going to be a big thanky for me with huge caveats on that. Okay?
Yeah, it's janky as hell for me.
Fair enough. I love, like, a Skaven book I'd been waiting on for so long. There are glaring problems with that book, but fortunately, most of them are points. Okay? Like,
Okay.
Is that not true? Aren't most of the problems that came in the Skaven book points related? Like, what's not balanced by points? Arguably, the Vortex is still annoying and stupid and should be unmade. No disagreement. Okay? I've hated that since the beginning. I have been completely consistent on that, saying it is a terrible thing that should have never had rules that looks like it does. So, Vortex is agreed terrible. Everything else...
The gnaw holes are ridiculously powerful. Like, compare them to almost any other terrain piece in the game. Not only are they given an army that wants arcane, they're also giving it free, like, teleportation.
Yeah,
right?
Okay, but
like, you can zone it out, and that's fine. But, like, who else has anything like that?
Sure, but okay, they have
in a ranged heavy army that can, like, move to...
That's not what they're winning. Pieces. Most of the lists have been winning with ranged type of stuff like that. We're using bridge, not the gnaw holes.
Well, but that's the point, is that they can do all of it, and so they can use whatever they need to win. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree they're a very strong army, but
they have too much.
I do not disagree, because I think they're still undercosted. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, if that's the point. But when an army comes out, I look at the my ultimate breakdown on thanky or janky, you know, that kind of thing. When I look at, like, FEC, I'm like, there's no world of points where it's going to make that fun to play against because of the underlying rules you've created. Okay?
Yep.
Whereas with Skaven, and admittedly, I'm super biased here, everybody.
Like, you are outlandishly biased, but continue.
Outlandishly biased. This is my second favorite army, so super fair. Okay? But, like, this was such a breath of fresh air to me, it just needs points to continue going up. You know what I mean? Like, it was way too cheap. Outrageously cheap. Beyond reason cheap. Okay? Yep. Beyond reason. So if your point is, yes, but this thing, this Vermin Lord was too cheap, or this thing is too cheap, you're only going to hear me on the singing in the chorus with you.
Right.
Okay?
Yep.
Because they do get too many toys for too little cost right now. But that's their only problem. Now, like, again, like, Vortex has been somewhat corrected, but it needs to be excised completely. It should just be, like, made 200 points and forgotten about and relegated to history. Like, seriously, that's how I feel about it. It should just be forgotten. Like, make it 200 points and keep its current rules, and just then we can all just never talk about it again, right? The issue with them is they get too much for what they've got right now. They don't pay enough to make real trade-offs.
Right.
That's all it is. But that's easy to fix. You know what I mean? Like, that's just points over time. Lots of armies have been in that position. You just kind of have to fix it, and then things can get, like, you start adjusting things around. By the way, a few of their units are too expensive. Okay. Some stuff that don't probably see the table enough, like Rat Ogres or something like that, right? And that's stuff I think we'd all like to see more of and being interesting on the table.
Yeah, like, I mean, I think that, yes, they get too much, but, like, they are like Stormcast in that they basically have almost everything.
Yes, but Stormcast isn't a problem.
And they can have almost everything.
Yeah, and like I said, like, no one's lamenting... Oh, what happened? There we go. Is Tom back now? We lost you for a second.
Oh, weird.
It's
Anyways.
You're back now.
And, like, again, if we're talking about the play experience of opponents, like, Skaven is not a pleasant play experience.
Okay. That's fair. Overall, I've still got to give him a thank you, but if y'all want to look and see that that's my super duper bias. Oh, Storm Vermin is another example of something that's too expensive. Not Storm Fiends, Storm Vermin. In a world of like Phoenix Guard and everything else there, Storm Vermin are way too expensive.
Yes. I mean, I hear that, but what I'll say is that I think that I think we're allowed to be split on this. I don't think we have to be in agreement.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's fine. We get a 1-to-1 vote. We got one thanky,
Yeah.
one janky. Well, let's continue that. Slaanesh.
I mean, I don't want to talk about Slaanesh anymore. I've spent too much of this year talking about Slaanesh.
I agree. It was an overall negative release. It was janky.
Yeah.
I think we can actually both agree on it, right? Like, it's a shame. I loved the new models. No doubt about it. They were all gorgeous. Like, to a sculpt, they were some of my favorite things they've ever released. It was everything I've always wanted.
Yep.
I've dreamed about it.
Including power.
Like yeah, exactly.
Unlimited.
No, it's everything I've wanted in those models that I've dreamed about for years. Okay?
Yeah.
And that book has just been an overall negative experience. Like, really. And so, yeah, it gets a janky from me. Like, I know that I was making a joke that we would split decision on it. Like, it's absolutely a janky, and it's a shame, right? So I'm excited for. I mean, that's why I shelved the army. Hashtag shelve Slaanesh. So I will be excited when it gets its fixes and whenever the late December, early January FAQ is, right?
Yeah, totally.
So
I agree with that.
Yeah, like I hope they're not afraid to do some surgery.
Hard work.
Yeah, like, I agree with Keith. It is too bad because Slaanesh had been neglected for so long. Just wish it was universally loved instead of hated. Yeah, I agree. Like that's why I see it as a tragedy. Like, I know we can all sit here and be like, Slaanesh makes me so angry. Fair. Totally fair. But, like, it sucks that basically 3 of the Chaos Gods have been doted on for so long and gotten all this attention and story and stuff. Slaanesh basically gets nothing. Then they finally get a thing, and it's basically universally reviled because of the rules that it has.
Yep.
Right. Although, that is... Konstantinos does make an excellent point. It's so Slaanesh to get everything you ever wanted, and it's ultimately a bad experience. Boy, oh boy, I can't think, there you go. That is such a good point. Such an absolutely good point. So, there you go. But yeah, ultimately, janky. Beautiful models. A lot of good concepts. Some good ideas in that book. Some horrible execution and overall jank and bad times for everybody all around. So, there you go. Hashtag shelf Slaanesh. So, let's see what happens post-review. All right. Fire Slayers. Tom, we're going to go to you on this one.
It's janky.
Really? Okay. All right. Go for it. Why?
Tell me one list that's fun to play against in Fire Slayers.
Tell me one list. All the Magmadroths. What is that, Lofnir or whatever?
Is that a thing? Is that a thing?
You said tell a list.
Have you seen that?
At a competitive tournament? No, but I've seen people run it. I know people run it. People talk about running it all the time.
I mean,
I only have one Fire Slayers player, and he plays a couple different lists. And I've played fun versions of his. He doesn't always run the, like, Hearthguard, Berserker, Death Star. He ran, like, a Volkite heavy list that was pretty fun. That was an interesting game.
Which is not legal at events.
Oh. He asked, could I play that Volkite? Because, yes, you're right. He did use that's like a battalion.
He used a good vote. Yeah, and like if that had been in the book, totally agree. But like that would be a very viable fun list
at our table because this isn't a freaking tournament. I play in my basement. That was fun to play against.
Can I make my point?
Go ahead. You said name one. I named two. Go ahead.
The problem
I'm ready.
is that like the book itself basically got updated rules for 4 battalions, and that's it. And so like where they could have done refreshing of the units or fine tuning and tweaking with some of it or whatever, like there are just fundamental issues with it that just didn't get touched. And for me, the most egregious of that is the battalions. And on top of that, the Vostark stuff that dropped in the White Dwarf a week before the new GHB meant that all of it was illegal for the next year. And so it just it was a miss. The timing on that stuff was a miss. The armies in general are unfun to play against. Mm-hmm. They generate bad play experiences. I don't know. Okay. I just I wish it had been different. Let me say that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, this one's going to be a split decision. I'm actually thanky for the Fire Slayer one. Maybe this is, again, outsider perspective. This isn't my army, right?
Yeah.
But I have played them. There's a regular Fire Slayer player in our club, and I've played him, a fair few times.
Right.
And I think that overall, when I look at that, well, yeah, I mean, yes, there was a comment that a lot of this is not fun to play against. Sure, we're evaluating on lots of different criteria. Competitive, is it fun to play against? Was it a good release? That kind of stuff. But that's a major part of the criteria, right? If one of the big things in sort of looking at an army's place in the meta is whether or not people tend to find it interesting, compelling, fun to play against, enjoyable to run and pilot. There's a reason why Ironjawz maintained an outsized meta percentage, even through the years where they didn't have a huge win percentage, right? And it was because they were fun in a box. So at any rate, it matters. It's a thing that matters. It is an important evaluative criteria, I would say. Yeah, I'm going to say thank you for Fire Slayers.
Okay.
I thought the book was interesting and compelling in how it brought the army forward. I thought that a lot of the rules refreshes and updates were good. I think having them be a brick army, they're a brick, right? And one of the challenges that I have in talking about fun to play against is that I generally don't, and the meta in general often doesn't enjoy highly defensive armies.
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
What the meta seems what people seem to love are things that go and smash. About that later when we get to Bone Daddies, right? Because the problem is if that stuff's not present, then certain things can run unchecked.
So if you were to nerf that unit, that one outsized unit that's having a disproportionate impact, you wouldn't have a functional competitive army. That's my critique.
Yeah,
and so it ends up being what?
I just don't agree with that.
If you didn't have Hearthguard Berserkers at their value for what they're doing, the rest of what you have can't get the work done because it's a bunch of dwarves with 1-inch reach on 32 mil bases.
Are you arguing there's no other? You're saying completely on the fundamentals. There's no other points changes or whatever that could happen that would make it compelling.
Okay, so let's imagine, for example, they drop Volkite Berserker costs significantly. Okay, so you're getting I say significant. Even something like 140 would be a change that would make them more playable. There's still a functional playability because it's a bunch of 32 mil bases on 1-inch reach, and so the actual punching power you have is quite limited. I don't know. I just
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there are plenty of offensive things in there, and to me, it just feels like the army needs a little bit of points movement. And yeah, sure, maybe the Hearthguard thing is annoying. True, Death Stars are Death Stars. They are what they are. But it's not like that's overwhelmingly broke the meta. It is what it is. It's, it's tough to go into. It's not unbreakable. There are ways to pick it apart. One strong unit doesn't win games of AOS. Right?
Totally agree. It's a crutch for the army, though, and that's my critique.
Sure, which is always a problem. I agree, right? Like, it is
Yeah.
always a shame when you have one outsized thing that almost becomes like the thing you have to pick.
Right.
That's
Right.
that's never the world we ultimately want to live in, right?
Right.
But at the same time, I still think that there's other interesting things in there. And I think that, like, on the whole, that army has fun options. It can make plenty of good, strong armies in interesting ways. I think, like, when you poo-pooed the Lofnir list, I don't. I think lots of people enjoy that kind of thing and love the idea of those Droths being powerful. And by the way, some of those lists can make Droths really, really cool and be scary. And, like, to me, all those lists are going to be fun at your local game night or something like that. So I don't write them off for a moment. And no, Alexander, it's not. I mean, like, no, we don't. We are definitely not just talking only tournament play. I hope that's clear from what we're talking about. We're trying to attack this from all the angles. We're just following the discussions where they go.
I mean, what I'll say is that oftentimes my perspective is my angle is going to be interacting on these things from a competitive event standpoint.
Sure, and my angle will not. But I have to answer what you say. At the
competitive, and then also fun, like opponent fun.
Yeah, sure. So anyway, my argument would be, I think for me it's a thanky. It gave It gave the people who love that army, and by the way, the people who love Fire Slayers, people like Kenny Lowell and people like that, who are like repping those boys hard. I think they were well served by the book. They got a book with different, interesting options, right? There you go. So to me, it's a thanky. Okay, cool enough. Although that doesn't mean it's perfect book. Thanky doesn't mean perfect. It just means more positive than negative, right? And janky means more negative than positive. 51% is still a majority. All right. Sylvaneth, Tom. Let's talk about them trees. What do you got?
I like the book.
I do too. I it has one glaring problem that I absolutely hate.
You mean the new Sylvaneth Wildwood?
I mean the woods in general. The fact that they didn't fix the woods.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with that. Yep.
The absolute miss when it came to that book was they had a chance to fix the woods, to make it so they could have released that new woods pack, said this is your one piece of terrain. And yes, I did see the Deathmaster Snitch thing, but I don't play Total War, but it's cool. I'm glad to see him jumping around. Deathmaster Snitch is a great dude. I mean, I have like every version of him ever that they released painted, so yes, I like him. The wood should have been this one thing. You set up a woods as you go through the game and you cast spells. And then the answer should have been just you turn the existing terrain features into woods, and those now count as your Sylvaneth woods. And that would have been
you make existing terrain creatures overgrown.
Correct. It would have been the easiest, simplest fix in the universe. It would have made them so much smoother and easier to play. Happy time adventure. Now, that being said, there's another player in my group, a good friend of both of ours who we've known for years, who plays Sylvaneth. And like, the army is cool to play against. Like, other than the dumb woods thing, okay?
Yep.
Like, I hate the woods. Full stop.
Yep.
Taking that out of the equation, it's actually a really interesting army to play against. And like, I like Dryka in her new form. She's very scary. I like the Spite Revenants. I think they present interesting challenges. Tree Revs are better than ever. Like, you've always got to be aware of them and what they're doing. The Kurnoth are scary as all get out. Like, I took 9 Kurnoth to the face and an alpha charge off of like a Viridian Life Swarm, so they had the big bonus to charge, And like, that is scary. You know what I mean? Like, that is a heck of a punch. So just like, there's a lot of compelling units in there. Maybe there multiples of their forest enclaves or whatever that they call them. Yeah. I don't remember what they're called. Woods, trees, whatever. Glades. You know what I mean? Glades. Thank you. Yeah, there you go. Multiples of those are cool. And interesting, like I don't remember any of their names, so I'm sorry, but like the one that gives you the Slanesh double tap on a 6, there's the spellcasty one, like there's several that I've played against that I enjoyed playing against. And yeah, I think they do provide you a tactical game. because they're so mobile, they can move around the board, they can create their own terrain, which is frustrating, but what is what it is. Like, some of their units are very tough. Some of their units hit real hard. Dryads are real tough to deal with, right? Like, a big unit of Dryads is a heck of a tar pit. They are an army that requires a lot of thought to play against.
Yeah.
And ultimately, again, I'm not sure that any problems with them just couldn't be fixed with, maybe they just need a little bit of points adjustments here and there, get a little more on the table, and then they actually become highly competitive. Because, again, I think the roots of that army are strong. Tree puns. And, like, I think there's a bit, like, as people have said in the comments, like, there's a lot of people who are negative on the book. I think that's just, there's anchor pricing in that. You know what I mean? And there's people who've been playing with it who've been doing pretty decently with it. But I think, to me, it's a good-looking army, one. Like, it's still a beautiful army. One of the more beautiful armies they released with all the new lines. It has actually a lot of different, compelling, usable units in lots of different ways who are, like, excellent at the role they're in. It just probably needs a little more tweaking. And a little more tweaking is not a reason to call an army janky. Like,
yep, totally agree. There aren't fundamental problems with it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they have good hammers, they have good anvils, they have good mobility, right? Like, like, all the fundamentals are there, and they're all cool. So yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the comments, make sure I didn't miss anything. Alexander says, just asking myself if FEC are a bad play experience if the list isn't maxed and if it's played in a friendly environment. Well, that's ultimately where I came down. I would say it is always just kind of not fun to play against. I've never had a good time playing an FEC army. Personal taste. So that's where I came down on. Even when they take other things.
Like, just, all flappies.
Sure. It's still always just like, ugh. Some of the ththings the army does are just not. It's the opposite of the Sylvaneth experience I just talked about. Like, with the Sylvaneth, I feel like we're doing this fun dance. We're dancing with the trees. We're dancing. Here we go. Like, how's this going to work? I got to pay attention here. We're going to have this fun combat over here. Who's going to outplay who here? And there's, like, a lot of fun give and take, right? With FEC, it's just like, there is no give, there is no take. Here comes the hammer. Get ready. So personal taste. I'm open to arguments. Any other thoughts on the trees, Tom?
I think it's a good army. I think that with a little bit of tweaks, I think it could work really well. I think that there's some design space that was missed, but they were building on a good chassis, and even, like, maybe I can tease it out this way. So, like, my critique on Fire Slayers was, like, very similar things were done with the two armies, right? So what they did was they took what they had and they basically, like, added or revamped a terrain piece, gave them some endless spells. And for a Sylvaneth, they actually got a new model. Fire Slayers didn't.
Sure.
But the problem is that, like,
they got a new model. I'm making
they
bigger
didn't.
air quotes. I'm saying saying Sylvaneth got a new model. They got a new
model. Like, if you bought the dual box,
correct.
That's a joke. But my point being that, like, there's not even that, like, the bench was deep on the Sylvaneth book.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Like, there were lots of units for them to play and to nuance and to create develop roles. That's just not the case with the Fire Slayer book.
Gotcha.
You have, like, 5 units.
Sure.
And
that's not always bad. You can still clearly succeed with just 5 units. See a book we're about to talk about in a few minutes. Right.
Sure.
It's just a question of having designated roles and actually fitting within a thing. But yes. Okay.
Right.
Next up, cities. The cities of Sigmar.
Win.
Thank you.
100% win.
Thank you. My God.
Yes. This was the biggest win of the year.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say it's the biggest win of the year. I swear it is. It is, like, yeah. I love the city's book. I love everything about it. Like, it's incredible. I love the design options. I love the fact that it breathed life into so many existing models. There is every army of every variety under the sun, from fun, casual, competitive, themed. The potential of cities to do massive themed armies. A week before Cities came out, I was like, cool, I'll buy the book. I have a clubmate who runs Cities who doesn't ever buy anything. Although I think that person did actually go buy the Cities book. Actually, he was so excited by it, he went and bought his own copy of the book. How about that? He doesn't have to use mine. Isn't that great? And he's real excited about it. But that's the point. That person in my club hasn't bought a book or anything. He just relies on stuff that we have in the club because he's like a pretty casual dude. For the past 15 years.
Yeah.
And he went out and bought a book and a couple kits, right? Like that's a big statement. It brought people back. It was like a week before I was like, oh, it's neat. It's kind of cool. A week after it, when we were doing the review or whatever, I was like, I guess I'm starting an army. Right. And like, as I got into the conversion, this idea popped into my head. I was jazzed, man. And I still am.
Yep.
Like, I can't wait. I'm waiting on some more bits to come in for the rest of my army before I work on the next pieces. So that's why I'm doing the Golden Demon thing now. But I am, its potential, its personality, its variability.
So you ready for my critique?
I'm ready. Like, I have almost none on this book. It was one of the biggest.
I agree. I think we could have went for some crazier armies. Like, I think it would have been neat to have like some, like, let me say this. I look forward to Cities of Sigmar 2.0. Like, 2 Electric Boogaloo.
5 years from now.
Well, no. Well, and here's my push. Maybe not. Okay. Maybe not. Because I could see them release a book next year for 5 more cities from Shimon and pick another realm in Shaiish.
Oh yeah, sure.
Mix in some of these units that were already there, add in some new units. Done.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. It's ultimately very expandable. Yes.
It's super expandable as a concept, and like one of the only critiques that I have is that we didn't have more crazy models. Like, it was obviously like released to bring everything we had up to speed. But like, because of the art direction of the realms, of the Mortal Realms, we could have really went with some crazy stuff. Like, I would love to see a city with like tons of Devoted of Sigmar, like to go the Zealot route and like just super crazy, like Baroque, like religious iconography stuff. Mm-hmm. I could have seen some of that where like the Order of Aesir has a significant role in a city, and so like there's a sub faction within cities that could run Order of Aesir.
We could totally have cities expand into other realms. Like right now they're all sort of Akshi and Gairan, right? But like this is the most expandable book they've ever done.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Like, so my only critique is that they played safe. Firestorm, what we all already had, when there's so much expandability potential here.
Oh yeah, so you're saying they could literally do a Cities of Sigmar 2, not reading any of the original book, like a true sequel. Yes, 100%. Now I'm on board. See, I thought you were talking about like the reboot, but you're not. You're talking about the sequel, right?
No, I'm saying I'm not. Yes, exactly. I'm talking about truly part 2, not the remake. Like, man, like there's just so much potential in this concept.
100%.
And like my sadness with this was that we didn't get new models to represent some of the craziness of the cities. Sure. But you could do that next year. Like, instead of doing a Stormcast book every year, let's do a new Cities of the Realms every year.
Love it. Yeah, if we can keep expanding Stormcast every other year, we can do this too. I agree completely. Like, more you're there now that I understand. Yes, let's get into Shimon. Right, let's get into Shaiish. Let's get into Haish once we explore that, or whatever. Right, like, yes, 100%, man. Now, Cities of Sigmar 2, City Harder. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Absolutely,
City Harder.
Here, yeah.
Yes. So that's one of my critiques.
100%, dude. Oh my god, how did this never occur to me? You just blew my mind with this one. I never even thought about it. The fact that we could just do a 2.0. And have it be no. The original cities, that's still there. We're not changing anything. This is just
you can field all of those,
right?
But now, like, here's another city that's made up of some of the factions that we know, like Daughters. Like, here we go, Ulgu, a city in Ulgu that's predominantly like Daughters of Cain, Darkling Coven, Order Serpentis, and then some Shadow Demon-y things.
Sure. Or it could have some of the other stuff in there too, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it can like
Right.
the
But
normal
that's what I'm
city
saying,
people
like-
are still there. Yeah.
Yes.
You could just add
But-
in. You could do additional 1 in 4 things like they did with Living City and
Yep.
with Tempestai,
Yep.
right? Like,
Yep.
oh my God, yes. It like these just write themselves at that point.
Yep.
Right? Like
So-
this, Tom, this is the best idea you've had all year. I'm thankful for this idea.
Well, it's funny because you said that about something not too long ago. But anyways,
You're really killing it lately, Tom. You've come into your own after 5 years.
thanks. I'm glad I'm pulling my weight finally. So like cities to city harder is like, I love what this book has done and the doors that it's opened, because again, we only have the Firestorm Plateau. We only have like the Giron, the mix of Giron and Akshi armies.
Yeah, sure.
The other critique that I had, and this is just a personal critique because it hits home really closely, is that it makes me sad that for those 1 in 4s that we didn't have Fire Slayers anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
Because if Fire Slayers could have been freely mixed in, that would have given new life to that force.
In the same way that like I didn't sell off my Sylvaneth army when I was about a day away from it because I don't want to play it in Sylvaneth because I hate the stupid trees. But now I can use it in a Living City army, and I was like, yes, I'm in.
Right, and I just wish that Fire Slayers had another option. Apparently, in like the novel, like the novelized stuff, the Hollow Heart city had Fire Slayers.
Got it.
Just like Caradhran Overlords were in Tempestai, Fire Slayers were in Hollowheart because it's like the underground one.
Yeah. This is great. I love all the subtitles that people have thrown in. Cities of Sigmar 2, Cities of Sigmar, Cities of Sigmar 2, Aetheric Boogaloo. I like that one. Cities of Sigmar 2, Full Throttle. That's Full Throttle. Yes, these are great. I love all of them. So, I mean, really, you're right. I mean, to me, it is the win of the year. It was a great book. It has great future potential. I hadn't even really considered that, Tom. But boy, oh boy, this is it. All right, well, last year or 2 years ago or whenever we originally predicted the Cities book and said they should do this thing, we made that happen. So hopefully now we're making this happen.
Everybody, put on your magical tinfoil Will hats.
Mm-hmm. Put it on
and
your
will
vision
this
board.
into existence with us.
Yeah, because Tom, okay, here's a simple question, audience. Here you go. We have a lot of people watching this right now. Happy Thanksgiving. So glad you're all spending some time with your Thanksgiving with us. But here, we're going to do a quick impromptu poll. You ready?
Yep.
Here's the poll. I want you to type in one word. In 2020, would you rather have another Stormcast book or another Cities book? Say Stormcast or Cities. Go. Okay.
I cannot wait.
You have to choose between one of those two. Don't answer other things. SCE or COS. Stormcast or Cities. Which one would you rather see in 2020? If you only got one. Okay?
Yep.
All right. I want to see it in the chat. So they'll catch up in a second, and then we'll see them.
I'm waiting. Stop it. Reflect your no.
Not the question.
Cities. Ah! Look at that spam. Look at that city spam.
Okay, all of you who didn't answer the question correctly, you're out of here. It's just all right.
You're fired.
Yeah. Okay. So there is some Stormcast in there.
But
I like.
I mean, it's at least 2-1 cities.
Oh yeah. I can go back and look at it. Cities of Sigmar, yeah, nice. Cities of Sigmar, Chamber Eternals. All right, good. We got a lot of people.
Hear that, GW?
There you go.
People want the sequel.
The people have spoken. I consider this a representative sample of the community. There you go. So thank you everybody for spamming the chat like that. I appreciate it. That was wonderful. I'll go back and actually count it up at some point. We'll figure out what it is. I'll do a little tweet afterward because obviously you can go back and look at the chat. So,
yep.
I agree. This was book of the year. Right? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
And notice, by the way, there was no terrain offered for this book, nor was there any endless spells.
Nope, didn't need it. Because it's a cool concept. Because honestly, just giving people the capability and the tools to make their own thing is
Yep.
often just as powerful as something where it's completely shaped by you, right?
Yep.
I've
Yep.
I haven't wanted to convert or make an army from scratch so bad as what that book made me want to do, right? There you go.
Absolutely.
Oh, we'll come to Gotrek later. Don't worry, Gotrek will come later. He's a standalone thing because I have the non-book things separated out. All right. War Clans. I mean, that's a solid thank yous, right? I mean, is there any question that War Clans a thank you as you bounce your camera all around since you're typing a response back?
Sorry. No, I mean, what I would say is this.
Now you're gone, Tom, because you can't chat to me there. You have to send me a text. I've told you a bunch of times. Then you screw my screen all up.
It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine.
That's fine. We'll move through this quickly.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this. I love the War Clans book. And actually, I think that, like, to me, it is another gem of a book. And it was only overshadowed by how quickly it was, or closely it was released as the Cities book.
Yeah, I agree.
It's by far my, like, second favorite book of the city.
Agreed. Yep. A big thank you.
Second favorite book of the year.
I knew what you meant. Second favorite book of the year. Beautiful in how it lets you both keep your Iron Jaws, keep your Bone Splitters, play them together. I thought there was that they could only ruin it by changing what was already there because I really honestly liked how Iron Jaws was post GHB. Nope. They made it way better. It was great. I was all about it. So, yep, loved it. I have almost no complaints on that book. Like, I have loved every army I've piloted. I've played Iron Jaws many times since that book came out, and I think I've had fun every single game. Like, and by the way, it's the kind of army that when I put it on the table, opponents are generally like, okay, cool. Right? Like, in general, I don't get pushback. People are like, yeah, great, this will be fun.
Yeah, there's no groans.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, Maw Tribes. That's a thank yous, right?
Yeah, it's a thank yous. I like what they did with it. I know people were critical of it, but I think that it breathed new life into that army.
Yeah, I think for me, there was... This is how I described it to somebody this last weekend. Somebody walked into a room that was a mess, right? It was dusty, it was dirty, there was, like, clothes scattered everywhere, the pictures on the walls were askew, right? Chairs were all scattered around and tipped over, and they're like, oh my goodness, this room is an absolute mess, right? I need to clean this up. So they came into the room and they straightened the paintings and they stood up the chairs and they picked up the dirty clothes and they dusted the table and then that was it. Then they left.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And it was like, whoa. There's still more stuff that's dirty in this room. You need to come clean up. We're not done cleaning up yet. Right.
Yeah.
Because
there can still be some renovation there.
Exactly.
The floors need waxed.
Yeah, there was like there's elements of the book that just don't feel like they got the appropriate attention, that didn't get touched well, like just things that were underwhelming. It feels like half the job was done. That's the best way I can say it.
And
now, the half that was done, I really liked.
I feel I need to defend this. I agree with that. That's how I feel about Fire Slayers.
Okay, that's fair.
But the problem is that
51% positive. And I don't think there's any way you couldn't say that book was 51% positive to the, like, that was such a great step forward from where they were. I think they'll land nicely in the fat middle and, they'll be good.
Yeah,
so
I agree with that.
Go.
I mean, I thought about, like, I seriously considered starting an army.
Yeah. All right, Bone Daddies. We just did our whole review last week, so if you want to see in detail what we think, you can go watch that. But thanky or janky on that?
I think it's a thanky.
I think it's a thanky as well. I am not too worried about them being like overtly crazy powerful. I think they'll be interesting. I think they'll be, I think they're a good addition to the meta. I do have some concerns about that dumb catapult and what it's going to do. But like the main figures are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, my God, Catacross is off the charts. Maybe the most single actual artistically beautiful model they've ever developed. The Death Riders look super cool. Lots of people. This was a great army that like people like Meph and a lot of others found a deep love in immediately. Like they looked at it and fell in love with it. Right. And I think that like it's good to have your
Mormite army, right? You either
It is
love
a
it or
very
hate
Marmite
it.
army, yeah. I think that they're, like I said, I have some concerns over the catapult ultimately. But that's honestly, I think, the only thing I have a super concern about.
Right. But would you still have those same concerns if the catapult was 240?
I don't know. I don't know. It might be just like one of those things. I guess the other concern is like all enclaves or bone claves weren't created equal. Like Petrifex is just too good, as they often do. So that's a shame.
Yep.
But like there are others that are also have potential. It's just like again, so
Right.
but on the whole, if I had to say, is the book 51%, positive? Yeah, man. I'm definitely coming down on a thanky on that.
Yep.
Like people tend to I think one of the things we often do as a community is we overstate the negatives. Right? We find one thing that's bad and we're like, oh, now the whole thing's bad. And I'm like, oh, come on, man. That's not fair. Right? Like we've got to look at these things somewhat holistically.
Yep.
And, to me, interesting, unique mechanic, cool design, cool new models, mostly fair fighting stuff that's a good defensive hard rock with some interesting pieces. Yeah, I think they're an interesting army.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's what I'll say. Now, I mean, time will tell. Who knows? Maybe we could turn out wrong. But, like, for me, where I'm leaning is they'll end up fine and in the middle. I certainly don't think we have new Slanesh or something on our hands where it's just going to break
No, like they are eminently handleable by a skilled player.
Yeah.
Like, and not to say that they're like easy or that they're a shrug, but that, like they will put up a good game, and that people with the right tools will be able to deal with everything.
Okay. So. There you go. All right, cool. And yes, obviously, like Petrifex is one of the challenges there, but overall, still positive. Slaves to Darkness, obviously, we don't know what that is yet, but I'm certainly thankful for it. So there you go. That's a big thank you.
It's going to exist. I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely. Let's go. So now let's do some other releases. Gotrek. I'll give him a thank you. He's a beautiful model. He made lots of people very happy. He's an interesting little missile that exists in the meta that he can ally into these armies and be something very scary. So
yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this: it's made people happy.
Yeah, and he's cool. Cool model, cool rules. They finally made an individual character worth 520 points, scary as all get out. Yeah, there you go. Neat enough. Gotrek's a thank you. Warcry.
Yeah. That's a thank you.
Huge thank you. Dude, Warcry's been super fun. Love it. So glad it exists. Gave another excuse to pick up small groups of other armies you weren't interested in and play them. Fun for quick pickup games. Fun for like the day before a tournament. Fun for like when you want to just get together and have a casual time and not put a huge army on the table. Fun. Like I am so stoked for Warcry. I can't wait to see what else we get for it in the future. Right. And I am very thanky and excited about that freaking llama cat, the Sphinx or whatever. Like, oh my goodness, I am so excited about that model, dude. I want to see a video where that thing talks. They should make that thing talk in a video. Because I want to know what it sounds like. I know what it sounds like in my head, but ask yourself, people watching, because that Sphinx is an intelligent beast. It's also telepathic, right? I think it's what they said.
Yeah.
Which is extra creepy. But like, what does that thing sound like when it talks? What do you hear in your head? Like, yeah. So definitely a huge thank you on Warcry. One of the best additions to the game in years. Absolutely wonderful.
Yep.
Forbidden Power. What do you got, Tom? I know what my answer is. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Janky. It was a letdown. It just was. Like, it felt like they made Death Endless Spells and then decided to push back a Legion's rewrite book and so shoved them into a different box product.
I agree with that.
Yep. Like, that's what it felt like. It wasn't a big enough payoff to the story. It just, like, it wasn't as interesting as it could have been. Now, like, narratively, some fun stuff happened that we still don't know exactly what the ultimate results are, but like it wasn't interesting enough for a whole box. And like four endless spells or whatever it was, like Cool. I'm glad those couple endless spells were entered in there. I'm sure a lot of people have made sort of competitive hay out of it, right?
Got some ghetto factions.
But like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just not at
Yeah.
all. I want to see big. If you're gonna do a big box thing like that, I want to see something with an impact. I want to see something
Like,
bigger.
how many times have you seen that terrain piece on the table?
Zero.
Right.
I mean, other than I guess I think I saw it once at a tournament because there was somebody who had one and was using it as a like no at a tournament as a like a TO was using it for not that. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
they were just using it as terrain, as like
And I
now
guess
roll for it
that's
as
my critique.
arcane or mystical or volcanic terrain. You know?
Right. That's my critique. Is that it's just not like it just seems a miss on so many levels, and all of the everything has either been like extraordinarily powerful, such that it needed like points rewrites a month after it dropped, or worthless.
Yep. GHB
Like-
19.
That's a thank you.
It's a thank you overall, but just barely. It's the lowest one.
Yes.
Like it's
Yep,
the
I would
it's
agree
at
with
like 51%. It's so close. It was so many
Yep.
missed things in there. Like why like meeting engagements, okay, cool, thanks. We didn't
What-
need that since
wait.
Warcry was a month later.
What was okay?
Yeah, exactly. You know,
What are these meeting engagements you speak of?
but like as far as points go, most of them were pretty positive adjustments. There was a couple things that were head scratchers, but for the most part, that part was good. You know, it cleaned up a lot of stuff. I liked the new command abilities. I liked the new scenery rules. I thought those were fun, right? That came in there. You know, obviously the terrain
There
rules
is
we all
fine.
just jettisoned straight out immediately. Those were dumb. Like it was as close to janky as you can get without being janky. It was certainly the weakest of all the general's handbooks they've done.
Yep.
Right.
And there weren't changes to things that like everybody wanted changes to.
Right. You know, they didn't add enough. in
Like
way
the
where
armies that we felt like needed changes got completely untouched and had to be updated separately.
it got clearly thrown under the bus of we're doing all these books so we don't have time to write all that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
That's what
Yep.
happened.
Yep.
And it's a shame because like I said, there's just so many different things they could have done. Now
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's in the rear view because like almost all of those factions in there were honestly touched now as of this next month.
Yep.
So
Yep.
fine, but the missed opportunity there was just saying, look, we're not introducing anything new because you're all getting books. And they should have just rolled out the release schedule.
Right. Like none of the factions are really playable in any significant way other than Seraphon.
Right. Yep. So, you know, there you go. And yes, obviously we all know those terrain placement rules were insane, and we immediately, as a community, we all jettisoned them. So
We all looked at him and went, nope.
Nope. And, like, I've never heard anybody say, are we going to use the terrain rules? Nobody uses them. Nobody should use them. If you meet somebody and they say, do we use these? Your answer is no. Nobody uses them. It's not how we set up terrain. So you want to come back? You know, like, you want to come back, GW, with some terrain rules? Try harder. By the way, we don't need it. The terrain rule is just pick the 6 quadrants of the table and put a piece of terrain in it. It's basically a good rule of thumb if you want. Or not quadrants, but you know what I mean. 6 sections of the table. Easy enough.
Three pieces per third of the table.
Yeah. So there you go. I didn't put it in here, but the gaming book was another little thing that came out that I liked. I picked up the little gaming book. I actually like it as a little game aid. It was a good game aid. And everybody's like, oh, they sold me the same rules again and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but they actually put everything together I wanted. I've been complaining forever they didn't put all the like realm stuff and those new terrain rules and command abilities and all that stuff into one place. So they did. And it's actually a really simple, handy book. And I brought it with me to some tournaments and I get it out when we play. And I've really never needed to reference anything else. So like the gaming book was actually useful. Yeah.
That's a win.
Yeah. Big thank you on the gaming book. It was also cheap. So that's fine. Cool. There you go.
Yeah.
The gaming book was a big thank you. All right, let's talk about. Let's just talk about. I want to hit the community actually next, and say that I think that as this community continues to grow, it is the thing I am most thankful for, and that's not just me blowing smoke because I'm a content creator or something like that. It's really not.
It's really like the best gaming community out there right now.
Yes, as somebody who's participated, as many of us have, in multiple gaming communities of different sorts over the years, I am consistently impressed and amazed by how awesome the people in this community are, by everybody's passion for the hobby, their willingness to help. No, I'm not talking Beastgrave because that's underworld stuff. I could only stick to main AOS stuff.
That's not a real game.
We only got so much time, unfortunately. But it was cool. There you go. Thank you. Beastgrave was cool. Easy enough. There's the wrap up. I can't deep dive on it. Tom unfortunately doesn't have a super ton of time. But like, this community continues to be absolutely incredible in how it helps each other. What I see, like, everybody, a lot of people talk about, like, oh, Twitter is so bad, or blah blah blah, or this and that, or these Facebook groups I'm in, or whatever. And yet, like, my Twitter is wonderful. I spend all day just looking at people shouting out their models they're working on, having fun conversations about gaming and about AOS, and that's all my Twitter is. It's the most positive place I look at. Like, I can just scroll through it, and I'm sad when I catch up to where, to the top, because I'm like, oh, this was so much good stuff, because everybody's awesome.
Yeah.
And it just continues to grow. The number of events doubled or something over the same amount of time last year, I think is what LLV said. And, more people are coming to tournaments, are coming to events. We had a bunch of new people come to Holy Havoc this year, and it was incredible. I think everybody there had a good time. NashCon was so fun. Like, everybody I met there was awesome.
A number of the events have significant like charity functions as well. Yep. And I think that, like, that's a huge, like, they don't exist for themselves. And I love that. I love it. Like Havoc, for example, like the Holy events over the last 5 years, which have been almost exclusively AOS, like they caught the tail end of 8th. Almost exclusively AOS, have raised like over 10 grand.
Yep.
For the local, like, homeless like outreach thing. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just the community is amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
I think about Nova and all the charitable stuff that's going on there, and and like it is a delight to be part of this community.
I agree. More content creators have come on. People just making incredible stuff. Like, my day is generally like full of hobby and AOS and Warhammer stuff, and I like all these content producers who produce stuff for free because they just want to share their passion is wonderful. My best advice is, is just keep it up, keep building, keep being positive, keep sharing your passion, sharing your models, doing that stuff, because we have continued to be a great community over these years, even as people said, like, oh, blah, blah, this, people are growing and negative people this and all this stuff. And no, that's not what's happened at all. It's just continued to grow and remain positive because we all refuse to let it be anything else. We all of us, not we, Tom and I, not we content creators, we, all of you listening and out there. And that's what's awesome about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. I don't think he said Nova and all the terrible stuff that's going on. He said Nova and all the charitable stuff.
Yeah, all the charitable stuff that's going on. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
I think he swallowed part of his word there. Charitable. Yes.
Yes. Not terrible. Charitable.
Yeah, there is. Terrible's kind of in there. Charitable a little bit. It's kind of a little
charitable.
Bit. Yeah. No problem. Alex said my Warhammer addiction is impacting my D&D at this point. I get it, man. It's you gotta find the balance. Like I said, that's why I was working on this, this map for my game at the same time that I was finishing up running a marathon and everything else. It's tough. And then finally, like, events, you did not get to do as many this year, but we got to do some.
I didn't.
But every event I went to this year was absolutely top notch. So Adepticon, Warhammer Fest, both of the Holy events, NashCon, Nova. I'm probably forgetting something, but that's a good list. Were all wonderful times. Thank you to everybody who said hi to me. I enjoyed meeting everybody. I enjoyed seeing the games, doing the paint judging, participating. The events continue to grow in amazing ways. Every tournament there I listed has basically gotten bigger, has gotten more people, and has remained absolutely amazing. Thank you to all the TOs of those events. You know who you are.
Yep.
You are all true Warhammer heroes. Uh, some
True.
of you are truly Warhammer heroes. So it's like, and all the events I didn't get to go to. I'm excited to go to CanCon for the first time next year. So it's just,
Oh, so jealous.
it's gonna be great. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say, Tom, other than a giant thank you
It's
to
been a good
everybody.
year.
It really has. Like, I mean, yes, there's been some rough patches, folks. Being a good year doesn't mean it's been a perfect year. And like I said, it's easy. We often get lost in the negative things when, life comes at you pretty fast. If you don't stop, look around every so often, you might just miss it.
I mean, think about it like this: within 3 months, the entire game will be updated with current rule stuff.
Right.
Like, we're still waiting on a Bretonian book
Yeah.
for 8th edition.
Sure.
Right?
Really dig it in
Right?
there, Tom. They have to wait 4
Well,
more years, and then they'll probably get a book.
well, but that's my point. Like we almost everything's up to speed and up to date. Like, it's just amazing. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Love it.
So yes, it's thank you, Llama Juice. Absolutely. The it's an amazing year. It's been great. Doesn't mean everything has always been great, but on the whole, when I look back on it, I am very, very thankful for everybody, for the community, for all the releases, to everybody at GW who's worked hard and been a great part of the community themselves, to all the TOs who are running great and growing events, to all the people who are sharing and creating content, to everybody who's just interacting and being here and watching, to all of you who've been with us throughout the show. You are ultimately why we do this. We are incredibly grateful to all of you for showing up here on these Wednesdays. I truly, truly feel lucky and that we get to do this. That we get to sit here and that you all show up week to week. We are beyond grateful for you. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Tom, any final thoughts you want to say?
Hey folks, there's a lot to be thankful for. Like, we didn't cover everything,
Yeah.
right? And so just go spread the joy.
That's right. Spread that positivity gravy. Hashtag positivity gravy. And if there's stuff you're thankful for that you didn't put down, that we didn't cover, drop it down in the comments. And share your own positivity there. Spread that positivity gravy all over the place. So with that, I will say thank you very much. We certainly appreciate it. If you're here in the US, happy Thanksgiving. If you're other places in the world, have a great rest of your week. And we will see you next Wednesday. Bye bye, everybody.
Bye.